What are you looking for in applicants?
We are looking for, so our president says we're looking for grace, grit, and gratitude, which I think is a great way of looking at it. We actually have this whole framework that the deans have developed where we're looking for evidence of leadership, creativity, and academic aptitude. We do factor in standardized test scores because we want to have some kind of objective measures. But we are looking for that whole package, and there's a heavy emphasis on the essays and the way the student talks about the demonstrates that they have some ambition in life and some steps that they've taken to do hard things.
And I know that you're friendly towards students who are coming from non-traditional education backgrounds. I know you have multiple of them in your founding 100. How do you think about kids coming out of non-traditional schools, homeschooling, private schools, weird experimental private schools? Is that like actively factored into the way you review applications, or is it so case by case that it really kind of varies?
I would say, it's really case by case. We do have, I don't, if you think about it, I don't think it surprises me that we have right now we do seem to have a disproportionate number of students who come from these non-traditional schooling backgrounds. And I think that's because their families are already kind of, predisposed. They're not adverse to risk, and they're not adverse to new models of education, which of course were brand new. So I think that explains a lot of that. And our students are really up for the challenge of joining us, being on board with what we're trying to do, and knowing that, all the details of year 4 aren't totally nailed down yet.
Part of the fun.
Exactly. You sort of have to have that feeling. And you can tell it's really funny how day to day, we have such an interesting culture internally at UATX. I mean, I love it. These are some of the greatest people I've ever worked with. And of course, in order to undertake an effort like this, you need a real diversity of backgrounds. So we have people who, have a lot of higher education experience, and we have some people who have a lot of startup experience. And those are two cultures that come together. You can tell when things get a little chaotic. There are some people who are energized and some people who are anxious. It's really obvious. Yes.
How does the melding of academia and startups work? Because I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of this, because you're building a startup. It's brand new, but at the same time, you're building a university. It's still an academic institution. And you have, like you just said, you have people from both sets of backgrounds coming in. And those are very different paradigms about how to approach work and how to approach building something.
Right.
What is I know this was a very deliberate decision to have a very strong startup culture inside of the university, not just because it's new, but because of what it's intended to be. Mm-hmm. But how does this meld actually work in the day-to-day? And maybe what are some of the edges that you think you have over a traditional and established university because you have such a strong startup culture?
Oh, that is a great question. So I've been thinking about this a lot because because I'm one of these people with a startup background, right? So I'm always thinking about, what are the advantages we have to being small? What are our unfair advantages that we can exploit here? And a big part of it is actually our ability to move fast. I mean, people say that, and it sounds like an easy thing to say, but in practice, I'm learning things every day about how higher ed works, and not because, there are a lot of great universities out there, but they're big institutions, and they're very social. They make decisions by consensus and with large groups of people. So they can't move as fast as the world is moving to, for example, overhaul their curriculum. We keep hearing we meet with lots and lots of big companies, and I won't name names here, but our Dean of STEM and I have talked to so many, especially engineering-focused companies, and their engineering leadership says, we just don't feel like we can retire because we don't have a bench of talent. Like the world has changed so quickly, and the skills that are required have changed so fast that, I've been trying to work with my alma mater for 5 years to make a couple of changes in how mechanical engineering is taught, for example, and it just they can't move that quickly. So that's the main advantage I would say that we have today. And also just our connection to the real world, the fact that we are, so close to industry and we can connect our students so quickly to industry. How that plays out day to day, we do have one of the other things that's really helpful is we're governed by a constitution, which I think is fascinating, and the more and more I learn about it and the more I live with it, the more fascinating it becomes to me because it helps provide a nice frame for how we do some of the core things that a university does. Like, for example, admitting students. We have some clear guidelines about who gets to make those decisions. In our case, it's the deans. They get together and they have the absolute right, they can't be overruled by the fundraising team or some other team to admit a student that they don't think should be admitted. So the Constitution helps, and that kind of guides some of the core day-to-day university functions. On the operating the business of the university, that's where the startup skills really come forward because it's important, and we've done a lot of work internally to bring everybody along to using kind of modern tool chains like you would use in a startup, like using, we use Google Workspace and Slack and Monday.com for our project management. And that's important to keep a really small, lean staff all on the same page when you don't have that massive apparatus that universities have.